I'm Sid. I'm the gal behind Lucky Lady Quilt Co. And normally I'm posting all about my sewing and quilting projects, but I've previously talked about how my now husband and I eloped in Japan this past spring. So I wanted to share all the planning and details that went into it. In regards to the planning that took place before we left for Japan, we had to do the typical trip planning tasks, which included booking the flight, hotels, trains, all for 15 days. For the elopement planning, we needed to figure out how we wanted to legally get married and if we wanted to go through the embassy in Japan or do a courthouse wedding in Utah, which is where we're based. It turns out that in Utah, there's only one county, which is Utah County, that will perform remote ceremonies via Zoom. So you never actually have to physically be in person at the courthouse. You can do everything remotely. My partner and I opted for the Zoom ceremony, so we would physically be in Japan while the witnesses and officiant would be in Utah. We just needed to apply for the marriage certificate within 30 days before the actual ceremony took place. We also had to pay a fee, which was $35, and then schedule the ceremony with the county and witnesses. There are just a couple additional pre-trip planning activities that we had booked. We ended up finding a ring making class where we could make our wedding rings, but we also reached out to an elopement photographer to have a little afternoon photo shoot in Tokyo, since we figured we'd probably never have a reason to have professional photos taken like ever again. This pretty much covers all of the legal applications and elopement scheduling that we did before leaving for Japan. Once we arrived in Tokyo, we immediately hopped on the train to Nagoya, which is where we spent the first few days attending the Formula One race at Suzuka Circuit. We had actually attended the Formula One race in Japan the year before, so we had ironed out all of the kinks from the first race that we had gone to, and I never thought I would be into motorsports, but here we are. So yeah, if you're a Formula One fan, the race in Japan was one of the more affordable races to attend, and it was cheaper for us to fly from Salt Lake City to Japan and attend the race than it was for us to attend the race in Las Vegas, which is like a 4 to 5 hour drive from us in Salt Lake City, which is wild. We had the best weekend watching the race and enjoyed roaming around Nagoya, and definitely recommend going if that's something that you're interested in. After the Formula One race weekend, we took the train from Nagoya to Takayama. We had booked a 5-day train trip that would go from Nagoya to Takayama, then Shirakawa-go, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, then from Shirakawa-go to Kanazawa, and then back to Tokyo. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, but it was great to see both urban and rural Japan. Totally worth it. We had ended up using credit card points to book a lot of our hotel stays and the flights, which was really nice. One of our more posh stays was in Takayama, which is where we decided to get married via the Zoom ceremony with Utah County. And the hotel room in Takayama was wild. We stayed at a hotel called Hotel Around Takayama. It's a full apartment with a kitchen, dining room, living room, 2 bathrooms, and it randomly had 3 queen-size beds that were just lined up next to each other. We thought this place would be fun to have the ceremony since it was one of our nicer stays, and scheduling the ceremony was a bit tricky given the time zone change. The earliest available time we could schedule the ceremony was at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and so this was at midnight in Japan. The hotel had actually provided us with matching PJs, so we just wore the matching PJs during the Zoom ceremony, which was a sporadic last-minute decision. We had our 2 witnesses on the Zoom call, as well as our parents and our siblings, and the entire Zoom call lasted maybe 20-25 minutes, and the ceremony itself was maybe 9 minutes. Overall, it was so easy and stress-free. We were also still able to experience the wedding ceremony with our family on the call, which was really nice. It was such a fun way to get hitched, and I fully recommend it. Hopefully your states also allow some sort of Zoom remote ceremony like Utah County. Once we arrived in Tokyo, we just had our 2 elopement activities left, the ring making class and the elopement photographer. For the ring making class, we went to MITUBACI Tokyo, which I'm probably saying that wrong. They had a few different class options where you could make engagement rings, gold rings, silver rings, any material that you would like, they pretty much offered. And we ended up going the more affordable route, which was the silver ring making class. They did have a wedding ring making class, but the materials offered were platinum and gold. So the class was a bit more pricey than just the silver ring making class, which is something to keep in mind if you are on a budget. But if not, do whatever you want. The instructor that helped us was absolutely amazing. It was just the 3 of us in the studio, and she was super friendly and really helpful. She actually had taken a ton of videos of us while we were making the rings. We each chose different finishes, or my partner and I each chose different finishes, but we engraved the same thing on the inside of the band. And the entire class was about 1 to 2 hours, and we were able to walk out with the rings that we had made. So you were in and out, didn't have to go back. It was great. I would also really recommend taking a ring making class. If you do elope in Japan, it was such a fun memory maker, and now we'll always think about the trip when looking at our rings, which is a bonus. So the last elopement activity that we had planned was an afternoon photo shoot in Tokyo. We had ended up reaching out to Luke at Heart and Hand Photo. He's actually based out of Sydney, Australia, but focuses on elopement photography in Japan and abroad. I had randomly come across his website a few months before the trip, and I reached out to see if he was still available anytime while we would be in Japan, and happily he was. We were able to hop on a Zoom call with him before to say hi, figure out what we wanted to do for the afternoon shoot, and Luke was awesome to work with. He had prepared a handful of different options for us, like a beachfront photo shoot, a forest waterfall photo shoot, a few different city options, but we wanted to highlight Tokyo, so we decided to stay in the city and take advantage of the peak cherry blossom season. We met him at a park where we had a few photos taken with the cherry blossoms, and where we would also exchange vows if we wanted to, but we were very casual and did not do that. But we then went to a neighborhood and also had a bite to eat. It honestly felt like an afternoon with friends, which was exactly the kind of vibe I was looking for. I was so worried that it would be awkward, or there would be like just awkward silence since I'm not normally one to have my picture taken. Luke made it really easy, and the best of all, it was really discreet while we were there, which is key for me. Luke had also planned out unique places for photos since he was already familiar with the city. He had sent us a link to a digital photo gallery that we could share with family and friends, and also for ourselves. I am so happy that we ended up booking this shoot, especially with Luke. It was the best way to wrap up our elopement week, and it's just so nice to have the photos to look back on. Once we made it back to Utah, we received the wedding certificate in the mail, and maybe a few weeks after that, Luke had shared the digital gallery with us. Overall, that is how we eloped in Japan and the activities that we planned. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. I really do hope this was helpful, and it was definitely a condensed version of the trip, but I tried to hit all of the elopement related details. I'll also be sure to add notes in this video with links to the ring making class and elopement photographer. So feel free to reach out anytime in the comments if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. If you want to check out my other videos on YouTube, they're pretty much all sewing, quilting, and handmade business related. I'm just starting out, so I'm figuring out audio and all that fun stuff, so I apologize for the shoddy audio. But anywho, thanks again for watching. Bye.